Tá. Aí você fecha as duas.
Ligar os microfones, pessoas.
Ah, sim. Desculpa.
It is working well in YouTube. In YouTube is fine.
Perfect.
Daniel, seu microfone está fechado.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry. My name is Daniel Tejão Almeida, and welcome to the first Bimonthly Forum of Heritopolis. The aim of this webinar is to open discussions around interesting and study cases of heritage within the metropolitan challenges. Also to learn about innovative and creative solutions in each presented scenario. The first discussions is about the city of Petrópolis, a mountainous city in the outskirts of Rio Metropolis, a city with incredible history, outstanding landscape, and also a very challenging scenario since the city is located within the narrow valley surrounded by steep mountains and presenting uncontrolled urban expansion due to its social disparities, making Petrópolis extremely vulnerable to climate catastrophes, such as the one that happened in last February, which the city is still recovering from it. I'll present right now Vera. Vera is a professor from the Federal University of Rio. Vera, is up to you.
Daniel, good morning, afternoon, and evening to all. It's a pleasure to be here in this first forum. I'm Vera Regina Tangari, as Daniel presented me. I'm professor of the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, which is a partner of the Our World Heritage Movement, and also the Heritopolis research group and also work. I'd like to thank Francesco Bandarin and also Mike Turner on all their teams. They have a very important team, and because they invited me for Our World Heritage and also for Heritopolis. So it was a very good way to be partner of this very important, these two important movements and also collaboration network. I'd like to thank especially Lucia and Danielle for organizing this forum and also for inviting me and also for enabling me to watch the presentations, know a little bit what's going on with other cities around Rio and also outside Rio in other parts of the world. I've got to thank you so much, and I hope to, if needed, our university and our graduate program in architecture is open to all collaboration needed, and also I'm very happy to help me this so important work. And also thank you, Daniel, for inviting me for his supervising, and I hope that we can collaborate for this forum. Thank you so much.
Hello, Lucia.
Hello, Francisco. Bienvenido.
Thank you,
Disculpe
Now,
el atraso, pero estaba cierto que era dentro de 2 horas. No sé por qué.
No te preocupes, llegaste justo a tiempo, Francesco, justo a tiempo. Acaba de hacer Daniel su presentación, Vera también, así que Daniel, dale la bienvenida si te parece.
Now, Francisco Bandarin gonna present himself and also present our group, Heritopolis. So, Francisco.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And sorry, apologies again for the delay. I miscalculated the time difference between where you're in Argentina, Brazil, and where I'm in Italy at the moment. So apology for that. But I've seen all the programs, so I think I can jump on the train. Okay, first of all, thank you for the invitation, Lucia, and thank you for organizing this meeting. I think you are doing you're playing all of you actually playing a pilot role in the preparation of the On the Occult event, which will take place on the 8th of September. And that, of course, you've spoken about, but I think it's important to stress the fact that this is quite an extremely important moment for us, for those who have working on Heritopolis and similar grounds, to have been accepted as one of the 12 side events of this global meeting that, as you know, take place 40 years after the first one, the Mexico 1982. Why? Because essentially the UNESCO has indicated that it will build its next policy platform on the results of the On the Occult and the side events. So we have an opportunity to really put something on the table that might play a role in the future. I think it's quite important and quite interesting for us. And we're not anymore like another marginal group of academics or people interested in heritage that meet and somehow discuss and so on. But we have the chance of playing a role in the policy making at that scale. Danielle, you said I had to introduce myself. I'm an architect from Italy. I've had the chance of being for 10 years the director of the World Heritage Center in UNESCO, and then for the following 8 years the ADG culture at UNESCO. So for 18 years I struggled in that kind of jungle, which is a very interesting one, full of exotic animals and carnivore plants. But at the end, it's also an opportunity, a great opportunity to get to know how international policies are shaped and how the roles of the actors, what civil society can do, how they can play a bigger role in that world. It seems sometimes very far away and very institutional and state party driven and so on. So I'm now using this experience to collaborate with many other friends in the development of our World Heritage. I don't know if you mentioned that, but it's an international NGO that plays this role, wants to essentially support an advocacy movement to give the civil society at different scales, local, national, international, a bigger role, a greater voice in the shaping of World Heritage policies and the management of sites and the discussion of the many issues that are have been open in the past decades around the role of heritage and World Heritage, which, as you know better than me, it's full of problems. It's not an easy thing. It's not an easy cake at all. It's full of problems, and this problem seems to become even more complicated now that somehow the scale of preservation has so dramatically expanded in the past 20-30 years, as to involve the entire planet in a way, and also how when new demands have appeared, they were not included in the original texts. If you read today the World Heritage Convention, you will be surprised of how backward, retrograde that text is. Of course, it celebrates heritage and it's great and so on, but it doesn't take into account many of the issues that are today on the forefront and on the first page, from how to deal with the human rights, how to treat the colonial, post-colonial heritage, and down to the role of communities and civil society and so on, and not to mention the internal questions and tension that have been developing in the past think it's on the the politicization of the process, on the on the top-down approach that characterizes completely this system, from its statutes down to its implementation and management, and many things like that. So I think it's what we would like to do, and I close now with the oral heritage and pass to the other one, is to use the opportunity of the 50th anniversary of the convention, which will be celebrated, as you know, on the 16th of November in Florence, Italy, to organize a conference, the 15th, the day before, dealing exactly with this issue. What is the role of civil society, different types of organizational civil society, those who deal with governance, those who deal with, civil society and so on, and in the future. Okay, finish my piece of propaganda. Now I'd like to talk about Heritopolis, which, strange enough is a byproduct of our oral heritage, because the people that generated that idea are the same, so are the same ones that pushed for the creation of our heritage. But of course, the direction of that project is different, and the scope is different. Now, what is the idea behind this project? First of all, it links closely to what UNESCO and other organizations have developed and studied in the past 10 years, especially around after the approval in 2011 of the UNESCO recommendation for the historic urban landscape. You certainly know about that, which is an attempt, we hope successful, to open up the definition of historic cities and urban heritage, not to consider it just a monument or a group of buildings, as the convention still calls them, or even just a physical entity, but something that represents a much more complex, dynamic, and interactive context where legacies of the past and contemporary life, cultural expressions, and economic life also interact, and also a way to understand the urban heritage, not just as a kind of a unity, a monument, but as a layer, a process that has developed through a century, and trying to understand it in its layering, different components and so on, integration with natural factors and so on. So we had tried at the time to open up, and voluntarily we said, this is not the category, this is not a new element, new, like you have, I don't know, historic cities, and you have also historical landscape. No, it's not. It's just a way, an approach, way to understand the role of historic heritage and urban heritage. I think it was quite a strong position, and to tell you the truth, not everybody has accepted it yet, and even the convention, the World Heritage Convention, has been resisting, introducing that term or that terminology and that approach into the thing, and we're still working on that. By the way, it's one of the scopes also of Heritopolis, to shake the tree as much as possible. And during that decade, especially in 2015 and 16, we had two major events which characterized the current international policies for culture and heritage. One was the approval of the SDGs in 2015, where culture and heritage are represented, maybe not as one of the goals, but they are there. And 2016, the Habitat Conference. Now, I like to point to this, because the Habitat Conference is where, in fact, the Heritopolis project is framed. The agenda, the new urban agenda, is a very large, complex, extended, even I would say limitless, text that leaves everything open. But this is our world today. Now there's nothing closed. We have to keep it open, because especially when we establish text that look into the distant future, as you know, Agenda 20 agenda, or new urban agenda, has a kind of a 20-year span, because this conference is organized every 20 years. So, next one is 2036, and I'm sure some of you will be there to attend it, but it's so far away in time. So, and we organized, as UNESCO, we organized for that occasion a very important document, which is called Culture Urban Future, where all this is the premises of Heritopolis, because that Culture Urban Future is, first of all, an analysis of what is the meaning of urban heritage in the different parts of the world. A very interesting research that we did, but also we created the link between the concept of urban heritage and urban policies. And this is exactly the idea of Heritopolis. We would like to strengthen this link between policymaking at the metropolitan scale and urban heritage, or heritage in general. Thinking that metropolis is a new context. Of course, they've existed since a long time, and even the term is ancient. Metropolis is Greek for a big city, but it's certainly, if you look at the forecast that was presented at the Habitat Conference in Quito, it's obvious that this century is the century of the megalopolis, because that's where the big concentration of people will happen in many regions, especially Asia, China and Asia, India, etc., Africa for sure, but also Latin America. And so we cannot avoid looking at heritage through that kind of lens and problematics. And the thinking that we are trying to develop with the project is, let's try to see how the growth of the metropolis, the planning of the metropolis, can use heritage to produce spaces of better quality, and perhaps also to eradicate more deeply people, especially the new people, like the new migrants and newcomers in the metropolis, to those spaces. So in a way, it's one direction is from heritage is a tool for planning the metropolis. Of course, this is already existing. We're not saying inventing anything, but it's always limited. Heritage seems like a closed thing. Normally, the historic center is, I don't know, the Forbidden City in Beijing, or whatever, the palace in Seoul, or whatever you have in Rio or Buenos Aires, or limited to in size. So I think that in this case, the change of size, scale counts a lot, because you cannot imagine that when you have a metropolis of 20, 30 million people, only the center represents heritage. Doesn't make any sense. Heritage is a social construct. It's a social product. It's a product of society. It's not something that comes from the top. So we have to understand how this heritage can be also produced and generated by the new communities. So if you look at the same object from the other side, you see the heritage can be changed. The concept of heritage can be changed. It's not the classical heritage that we have, like in World Heritage monuments or even landscapes and so on. It's something new that perhaps we have the chance of breaking some of the let's call it dichotomies that characterize heritage today. I just mentioned two, but I know there are more. The two big ones are the dichotomy between natural and cultural heritage, as if they were two different things, and this cannot generate any meaning in the metropolitan context because of the territorial scale and the relationship of that urban formation with a large system of natural forms and so on. And the other one is the dichotomy between tangible and intangible heritage, which is another thing that drags on and that we think it's completely artificial, and also limits the creation of the generation of heritage forms for new populations. Because if you have a new migrant come to a city and you find some heritage is not yours, so you can be associated, it becomes like a part of your, and happens very often communities adopt heritage, but then there must be a way in which your heritage, which normally you carry with you, which is your culture, your expressions and so on, can also be valued as part of that system of heritage identification, protection, and valuing that then for example heritage tries to practice. So it's a mirror thing. What heritage can change the metropolis, and metropolis can change heritage. So, of course, we have to now to look into the concrete cases. So that's why I'm sure you will talk about. We have organized this survey last year, which is now extended to, Lucia, maybe you know more than me, like 15 cases now. We have something. It's actually a prairie fire heritopolis. Now it's becoming, everybody wants to be on board, which is good. We've done a survey, and then I think more than that. That's because, you know, as always, when you start discussing with intelligent people, then things become very interesting. And we have, I know, gathered a lot of new ideas and new approaches that are now, you know, being formalized in reports and so on, and that we want to present at the Mondial Cult. It was already presented. I think Antonella was one of the protagonists there at the Katowice Forum in just a month ago in Poland. There was the World Urban Forum, and then we want to present the Mondial Cult. And then there is also foreseen a conference with the conference in Korea at the end of the year. Now, one thing I want to stress, and I close then after that, is that this is not just our idea. This has become the idea of the United Nations through the agency that represents, you know, the urban concern of the United Nations, the UN Habitat. And as you've seen in the labels and text and titles, we are now part of their system, and we are one of their programs. And they put us up front in their website. They are helping us with Mondial Cult. It's becoming something interesting. I think it's quite interesting to stress that, you know, this organization has never really dealt with cultural issues. The UN Habitat is more for, you know, urban problems, transportation, slums, you name it. But they have understood, by working with us and participating into this very interesting exercise, the power of culture and heritage for the future of the metropolis. And I think this is really already great success of our initiative. So, well, I think I'll stop here, Daniel and Lucia and friends, but certainly we will see more and we will see greater things in this project. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you very much, Francesco, for your great presentation. I would like also to invite, if it's possible, Antonella to talk about the experience in World Urban Forum and the game that she presented in World Urban Forum, presenting Heritopolis in World Urban Forum this year. Is it possible, Antonella, to talk a little bit about that experience?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you, Daniel and Lucia, for inviting me. Yes, the game was an educational game, and it's exactly something that fit with the word of Francesco Bandarin. We try to understand how is it possible to territorialize the SDGs. That means that we try to use the target that component the relevance of the principle of the Sustainable Development Goals, try to understand how is it possible to cross the goal of the SDGs 11, that is the one much more related to the habitat and the construction, the landscape, etc., within all the other goals that are social, economical, etc. So that is important because, as Francesco Bandarin said, we try to understand how it's possible that the metropolis should be the new urban culture of the future. So the idea of the time must be shifted from the past to the future, which are the data that we have to take into consideration if we don't want to produce a generic city, as Colas used to say. And the case of Petropolis is exactly in that frame, because it's a historical city, super relevant in Latin America also because it works with the water system and the canal, but is under the risk and the threat of the climate change. And we should connect the topic of the water system, but also the topic of the just city, and in particular, we have to think about new affordable houses, but also new just work, where these people should really live a new just life in a metropolitan city. So the experiences that we have done in Katowice was relevant for us because we invited different experts from different disciplines, and everyone tried to focus on the concept of the new legacy and heritage of the nowadays city, speaking about, for example, the change of the land use that is related to the change of productivity that will produce incredible problem for the conservation, not only of the structure of our city, but also the image of our city. So that was, in short, what we tried to figure out. I think that Eritopolis, for us, as research, is an incredible opportunity to develop a new line of research that allow us to work in a very multicultural, multidimensional way. So I hope that many people would like to join us and investigate with us in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Antonella. Now, for a short presentation of both speakers, we have Adva, one of our members. She's not here physically due to Shabbat, and we have to consider all the cultural and religious situation of everyone. But here we have a short video from her presenting both our speakers.
Hello everyone, welcome to the first session of Heritopolis Bimonthly Forum. My name is Adva Matal, I'm a researcher at Heritopolis project, and I'm very honored to present to you today the two speakers of the session. The first one we'll present is Claudia Baima. Claudia is an associate professor at the State University of Rio de Janeiro. She's an adjunct professor and coordinator of the Architecture and Urbanism course at the State University of Rio de Janeiro. She's an architect who earned her doctorate and master's from the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro in Heritage Restoration and Management. Active since 2000 in areas related to the conservation, restoration, and rehabilitation of protected, preserved, and listed properties. Within the university, she coordinates and develops extension projects with students related to architectural, historical, and cultural heritage. The second speaker of today's session is Yara Valverde. Yara has a PhD in geography from the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, and she's a researcher and tutor at Milan Politecnico. She's a biologist who graduated in biological sciences, has a master in nuclear biosciences, a doctorate in geography, and 2 postdoctorates in forest and environmental sciences, and in public policies, strategies, and development. She was Director of Conservation International Brazil Sustainable Cities, and Director of the Petropolis Protected Area, and President of the Forestry Institute of the State of Rio de Janeiro. Currently, she's a researcher and professor in the field of landscape conservation at the Departments of Architecture at the Pontifical Catholic University of Rio de Janeiro and the Politecnico de Milano. Early in her career, she worked as a director and producer of journalism, video, television, and film. I hope you enjoyed today's session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now it's time for Claudia to start her presentation.
Bom dia a todos. Primeiro, gostaria de agradecer pelo convite para participar desse debate, desse encontro. Muito grata. E eu vou falar sucintamente dos trabalhos que a universidade vem realizando ao longo desses últimos anos na cidade de Petrópolis. nós somos um curso novo, desde apenas 2016, e nós formamos a primeira turma agora em final de 2021, e durante nossa estadia, né, estada aqui na cidade, desde o início das nossas atividades na cidade, nós procuramos sempre elaborar, propor uma série de trabalhos, convênios direcionados em prol da sociedade, em prol do patrimônio histórico.
Good morning. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Claudia Baiman. I will talking a little about our graduation. This course is very new in the city, and last year we got. Sorry, I'm. Sorry. The last year we graduated the first class in 2021, and I'm very happy to be here.
Eu escolhi, não há como falar todos os projetos, porque são vários, o que nos deixa muito felizes e orgulhosos.
It's a lot of projects, so I chose some of them, but they all very important and make us very happy.
E é mais focado os projetos direcionados no patrimônio histórico diretamente.
But I chose the projects that focus on heritage and
eu vou apresentar então.
I don't know how to say patrimônio. Sorry.
Eu vou apresentar então agora alguns slides.
Now I will present some presentation of these projects.
Vocês estão vendo?
Can you put on full screen for us?
Tá pequeno, Cláudia.
Eu achei.
Eu tinha feito correto, agora eu não estou conseguindo achar. É porque Sorry. Não? Ok.
No, it's not full screen.
Não,
Can you
ainda
hold
tá
close
pequeno.
and open again for us?
Ok.
Try to share again your screen, your whole screen.
Ok. No?
Now I can
Agora
see
foi.
very clear, so you can start.
It's okay?
Yes.
Oh. A localização do estado do Rio de Janeiro no mapa do Brasil e o município de Petrópolis dentro do estado do Rio de Janeiro.
Here, map of localization of Rio de Janeiro and Petrópolis inside Rio de Janeiro.
Nós temos o distrito de Petrópolis, constituído por 5 distritos, mas o centro histórico de Petrópolis, do centro histórico de Petrópolis está inserido no primeiro distrito.
Here we have a map of 5 districts of Petrópolis, and here we have the first districts and the most power color.
Em seguida, nós temos uma cena da fundação, é uma pintura da cena da fundação da cidade de Petrópolis. Petrópolis foi uma cidade projetada em 1846.
Here is a painting of the foundation of Petrópolis. This is a painting of 1846.
Júlio Frederico Köhler nasceu na Alemanha, era um engenheiro militar, e migrou para o Brasil em 1828. E ele foi um dos responsáveis pelo projeto da cidade de Petrópolis.
Júlio Frederico Köhler was born in Germany. Then he came to Brazil as a military and engineer, and he made the plan of urban of Petrópolis.
Um recorte do projeto. Aqui nós podemos ver esse pequeno centro, é o centro histórico da cidade, e na planta podemos ver a proposta de retificação dos rios, dos principais rios que cruzam a cidade.
This is a planned Villa Imperial de Petrópolis made by Júlio Frederico Köhler with the rectification of rivers in the center of the city.
A proposta de Júlio Köhler era os quarteirões ao longo, os lotes ao longo dos rios, dos vários rios que cruzam a cidade, formando bairros com os nomes das regiões da onde vieram esses imigrantes alemães.
Júlio Frederico Köhler proposed the allotments along the rivers and the blocks named after the regions of Germany where the immigrants came from.
Nós temos em Petrópolis uma colônia alemã ainda muito expressiva.
We have in the city, in nowadays, a German colony, very big.
Apenas uma vista aérea do centro histórico, desde a Praça da Liberdade até a Catedral. Esta é a Avenida Köhler, uma das principais, mais bonitas avenidas preservadas da cidade.
It's a view of Avenida Köhler from Praça da Liberdade and Catedral, and it's very beautiful, and visitors love this avenida.
Demais imagens, aqui uma vista da catedral e uma vista desde a catedral em direção à Praça da Liberdade.
Here we are more photos of this view.
E ao longo dessa avenida nós temos a presença de inúmeros casarões ecléticos, de uma riqueza arquitetônica muito grande.
And in this avenue, we have lots of big historic house, with a rich architecture and history.
Napolitana.
I think she has some connection problems.
Así parece, ¿no? Daniel, ¿estás por ahí? Creo que Claudia...
I'm here. Maybe we just wait a little bit for Claudia to establish herself.
Ahí está. Creo que ahí volvió, ¿no? Claudia,
are you here, Claudia?
My internet is not good. I don't know why.
Okay, so you can start from Metropolitan Architecture, where you stopped.
Here's the cathedral and the Crystal Palace and the Quitandinha building as a very old building that was a hotel. Algumas expressões assim mais importantes de Petrópolis. Eu vou apresentar muito rapidamente exemplos das tipologias arquitetônicas da cidade.
Here, main architectural expressions of Petropolis. The first is neoclassic.
And aqui, now we have the palace, Imperial Palace. So nowadays, it's a museum. Período republicano, com a tipologia de edifícios ecléticos. A Câmara dos Vereadores e o Centro dos Correios.
Here we have the Republic period with the eclectic, and here we have the City Council and the Central Post Office.
Período expressivo de 1930 a 1940, o auge do Art Deco, a Casa d'Angelo, restaurante bastante tradicional, e o Teatro Dom Pedro.
Here we have heyday in Brazil between 1930 and 1940 with Art Deco. Here we have a restaurant, Casa d'Angelo, and the theater Dom Pedro.
Todas essas edificações que eu apresentei até o momento ficam localizados no centro histórico da cidade.
All of these architectures is located in the center of Petropolis.
O período modernista, que se estende de 1940 a 1950, é composto por unidades de casas unifamiliares já distribuídas em bairros mais afastados do centro histórico, com projetos de renomados arquitetos.
Here we have the modernists that come from 1940 to 1950 and is corrected by single-family homes designed by famous architects from the years. Okay.
A cidade de Petrópolis tem rico e importante patrimônio arquitetônico. Isso proporciona aos estudantes da Universidade de Arquitetura, da Universidade do Estado do Rio de Janeiro, do curso de Arquitetura e Urbanismo, diverso, enorme acervo a céu aberto para pesquisas e estudos.
The city of Petropolis has a rich and important architectural, urban, and natural heritage, comprising in its historic center and surroundings. This provides students of the architecture and urbanism undergraduate course at the State University of Rio de Janeiro, UERJ, with a diverse and rich open-air collection for research and studies.
Petrópolis tem o seu conjunto urbano paisagístico preservado pelo Instituto Nacional Histórico, chamado IFAM. Esse tombamento é de 1964 e, posteriormente, houve uma extensão dessa área de tombamento em 1980 e 1982.
Petropolis had its urban landscape ensemble listened by the National Historical and Artistic Institute, IFAM, in 1964, and this listen was extended in 1980 and 1982.
A portaria 213 do IFAM é responsável por a legislação que atua sobre a cidade de Petrópolis.
Ordinance number 213 from 1998 of 96, sorry, of IFAM provides for the surroundings of licensed properties in the city of Petrópolis, mainly in relation to the use and dimensions of the properties located in these protected areas.
Mas atualmente essa legislação é muito restritiva e não atende às demandas das mudanças sociais da cidade.
However, IFAM's current legislation is very restrictive for the changes and social demands of the city today.
Nós podemos ver nesse mapa a poligonal, que é a delimitação da poligonal de tombamento do IFAM na cidade de Petrópolis.
Here we can see the polygonal of the IFAM to preserve the central area of Petrópolis.
O centro histórico e as ruas mais importantes estão em amarelo.
Repeat, please, Claudia.
O centro histórico e as ruas principais.
The historical central and the mainly streets is in yellow.
The Liberty Place and the Cathedral, they are here, and there the Avenida Köhler. O primeiro projeto é uma coleção, são fichas de inventários das áreas tombadas da cidade de Petrópolis. É um projeto coordenado por mim, com a colaboração das estudantes.
The first project is data collection of the Lissan urban landscape in the city of Petrópolis, with Cláudia Boima as coordinator and the students Lídia, Liliane e Mariana.
Então, os objetivos: colaboração dos estudantes com o escritório técnico do IFAM, a revisão da portaria 213, e nós temos que ver a questão dessa regulamentação frente às demandas da cidade, com o intuito de atender a essas novas solicitações contemporâneas.
The objectives is collaboration of students with the IFAM Technical Office, the revision of Ordinance number 213 of 1996 of IFAM, Petrópolis Heritage Listing, and make the current regulations more consistent with the city's growth dynamics, but at the same time respecting and preserving the values attributed to the complex when it was listened, as well as conserving its current development and harmonious adaptation to contemporary needs.
Aqui é um outro mapa da poligonal do IFAM, com as ruas em amarelo. As ruas em amarelo são as ruas que foram feitas as fichas para essa revisão da normativa 213.
Here we have another map from polygonal of the IFAM preservation area, and we have the main streets again in yellow. That was the object to studies and make the data sheets.
Foram feitas fotos aqui um exemplo da Avenida da Köhler. Nós fizemos fotos individuais de cada edificação.
Here we have an example. It's Avenida Köhler, sign map indication the location of photos that was took at photos from these houses taken for the survey.
As fotos, levantamento fotográfico.
Here we have the photos of buildings.
Aqui o mapa de uso e ocupação do solo.
The land use and occupation map.
O mapa dos gabaritos dessas construções.
Map with building heights.
E aqui uma tabela dos índices construtivos.
And a table of constructive indexes.
Todos esses dados foram encaminhados ao escritório técnico do IFAM.
And all of this material was sent to IFAM.
Foram, no total, 27 fichas.
In total was 27 datasheets.
E essa revisão da normativa ainda está sendo feita.
And this revision is already made.
O segundo projeto seria conhecer essa arquitetura e o patrimônio da cidade de Petrópolis. É um projeto do professor Arthur. A proposta é a elaboração de um guia da arquitetura da cidade de Petrópolis.
Here's the second project, knowing the architectural and urban heritage of Petrópolis from Arthur Tavares. And the search proposed the elaboration of a city architecture guide with a view to.
Aqui um exemplo de uma ficha.
Here's an example of datasheet
da casa de Santos Dumont, que atualmente é um museu.
This datasheet is from House Santos Dumont, and actual is a museum.
Então, na ficha, ele faz uma pesquisa histórica com dados da tipologia, da construção, de quando houve restaurações.
In this datasheet, we have some informations about the house, like project, construction, topology, main restorations, registration and visitation.
Fotos atuais da casa. E uma pesquisa iconográfica, como, por exemplo, plantas antigas.
And some photos of house and some drawings too.
Aqui outro projeto é um site, patrimônio.erg, da professora Karina Martins.
Here we have another project, heritage.werg, from Karina Martins and the students Alice, Sofia e Gabriela.
A proposta é a produção e disseminação desse material, produzido pela faculdade.
This project proposed the production and dissemination of content on heritage preservation and the actions developed at UERJ.
Exemplos, de alguns de entrevistas com os trabalhos dos professores, professor Arthur Tavares, professora Maria das Graças, professora Karina Martins, professora Patrícia Drar, vários professores foram entrevistados.
Here we have an example that the project make interviews with teachers from university like Maria das Graças, Patrícia Drar, Karina Martins e Arthur Tavares.
Onde eles apresentam os trabalhos que estão sendo desenvolvidos por ele na faculdade.
Where they presentation the works developed at UERJ.
Uhum. Há algumas notícias também relacionadas às temáticas do patrimônio.
Some news related to the patrimony.
E aqui um próximo projeto é Educação Patrimonial, um projeto da professora Maria das Graças, onde ela também propõe fichas de inventário sobre os casarões e palacetes do Centro Histórico do Rio, do Petrópolis.
The next project is Heritage Education, House and Palaces in the Historic and Landscape Center of Petrópolis. It's from teacher Maria das Graças with the student Alexia. And the extension project aims to collect data, prepare lectures and information to disseminate the history, architecture, and heritage of the Historical and Landscape Center of the city.
Aqui um exemplo da aplicação de um caderno de exercícios, de atividades com as escolas, com as crianças das escolas do município de Petrópolis, trabalhando a memória efetiva desses lugares com esses alunos.
Here we have an example of application of the activity book with kids from Petrópolis schools that exercise the effective memory of these children.
O outro projeto foi um projeto de assistência técnica para a casa do Museu Casa do Colono, para um diagnóstico de uma modernização das instalações elétricas, adequação e modernização das instalações elétricas do museu, que estão, no momento, extremamente obsoletas. Esse projeto foi uma parceria com a Prefeitura de Petrópolis, com o fomento do Ibermuseus.
Now we have another project, technical assistance project at Casa do Colono Museum. It's a diagnostic consultants, lighting study, and elaboration of an executive project from the adequacy of electrical installations without interfering with the originality of the building listed by the National Heritage. It was partnership with the municipality of Petrópolis and funded by the Ibermuseus.
Aqui uma foto da fachada principal. É uma construção de 1847 com um sistema construtivo em cantaria e pau a pique.
Here we have a photo of this construction. The construction dates back to 1847 with a constructive system in mortar, stonework, and stick walls.
Fotos desse sistema construtivo e janelas de prospecção.
Here we have more photos of a constructive system and prospect windows.
Fotos internas do museu.
Here we have more photos from inside the museum.
E um projeto todo feito dentro da plataforma BIM, com aqui um gráfico das curvas de Isolux.
We have some work, okay? Isolux curves and false colors diagram of exhibitions environments.
Esse foi um trabalho elaborado por mim e pelo professor Paulo Rocha, e com a contribuição da Larissa Scott.
It was made, the project was developed by Cláudia Baima and teacher Paulo Rocha, and I was some part of this.
Aqui o projeto Palácio Amarelo é um plano de ação de preservação, é uma parceria entre a universidade e a Câmara dos Vereadores de Petrópolis, um projeto desenvolvido pela professora Maria das Graças.
Here we have the project Palácio Amarelo, Plan of Action and Preservation, which was a partnership with the Petrópolis City Council, and it's from teacher Maria das Graças with the student Alexia.
Um outro projeto é a reconstrução da memória das estações de trem, né, dos trilhos de Petrópolis, para a proposta de um guia para se percorrer e caminhar pela cidade, da professora Patrícia Drar.
Here we have the project Reconstruction of the Memory of Trails in Petrópolis, to make a guide to walking, and it's from teacher Patrícia Drac with students Fernanda and Thaisa.
A presença dessa ferrovia na cidade, ela foi fundamental para o desenvolvimento da formação e caráter particular da cidade, né? Nós temos várias indústrias, vários espaços industriais na cidade, ainda reminiscentes dessa produção têxtil da cidade.
The presence of railroad in the city of Petrópolis was a key factor for its development and for the formation of particular character of the city, focus on industry, mainly textile, and which today has its representation in the presence of Teresa Street.
E a proposta é de um guia para caminhar com o trem, né? Surgiu da observação ainda da riqueza dos vestígios ainda presentes na cidade. O trajeto é proposto em torno do centro histórico e ele é permitido se fazer todo a pé.
The proposed route is in the surrounds of the historical city, the historic center, sorry, and can be walked.
Aqui um exemplo das construções, das indústrias têxteis da cidade.
Here's an example of these industrial constructions in the city.
Aqui várias estações, pequenas estações de trem, responsáveis pela formação da cidade.
Here's some stations, rail stations, that was responsible for the formation of the city.
Algumas estão restauradas e são museus sobre o trem.
Some are restored and now is a museum, a rail museum.
E aqui é a proposta do caminho para ser percorrida a pé pela cidade.
Here we are the purpose of a walkway to walk in the city.
E muito obrigada a todos. Foi um panorama, um pequeno panorama das atividades que nós desenvolvemos na faculdade junto à cidade de Petrópolis.
Thank you very much. It's just a little about the projects we developed in the city, but thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Claudia, and thank you, Larissa, for translating in real time everything. So it was great. So we could both listen to Claudia in our mother tongue, and it was easier for her, but also it's a form of heritage, since we are talking about our local languages and how we relate to that. So it was very important for us to hear you guys presenting these associations from the university to the local management and the heritage policies. So now I'm inviting Yara. Yara, you can start your presentation right now.
Okay. I forgot como é que faz para eu colocar.
Embaixo tem uma share screen, embaixo.
Share screen, verdade.
Verdinho. Aí você coloca a tela toda, né? Não sei, tela cheia, full screen.
Share screen. Ok. Ok. Ok.
You can start.
Ok. Obrigado a todos. Obrigado especialmente a Antonella pelo convite e para a Lúcia, para Daniel. Estou muito feliz de poder participar desse debate sobre as heritage. Não vou falar em inglês, vou tentar ler alguma coisa que eu escrevi em inglês para vocês e tentar passar para vocês um pouco do que é o patrimônio ambiental de Petrópolis, o patrimônio, vamos dizer, natural, né, de Petrópolis, a natureza, que é tão importante para a cidade, que foi reconhecida internacionalmente, e também colocar um pouco da nossa experiência como gestora e como pesquisadora também da universidade e da academia.
Yara, I'll ask you if you want me to translate. If you want me to translate, I need you to make some stops in between, so it won't be as hard for me.
Daniel, I think that probably we can make
just let it go
just faster. So I try to translate Yara at the beginning. So you should, instead to translate phrase by phrase, probably it's better that you speak and try to synthesize what you are saying. No, parli un po' di più e io cerco di fare la sintesi, perché altrimenti ci mettiamo veramente moltissimo tempo.
Allora,
I should start with your first phrase. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. Yara Valverde would like to speak about the environmental heritage, environmental and natural heritage of Petropolis. So it's quite interesting that she spoke about the natural and environmental, and in particular, she would like to focus the two different perspectives. The perspective of the researcher, but also the perspective of the manager of this heritage.
Ok, thank you. E, na realidade, nosso trabalho é focado, foi sempre focado, ao longo de 30 anos, em conservação, tentando achar a melhor forma de conservar a paisagem ambiental, a paisagem natural, a paisagem natural do Brasil, não só de Petrópolis, mas Petrópolis foi escolhida justamente porque era uma paisagem cultural e natural muito interessante. Ok.
Puoi anche parlare un po' di più, But anyway,
não era somente, como foi falado aqui, o interesse dessa rede, né, que eu acho muito interessante, é a gente conseguir entender como o patrimônio, seja o patrimônio cultural quanto o patrimônio natural, ele pode servir para o desenvolvimento, para essa nova forma de desenvolvimento, né? E eu não posso falar do patrimônio cultural, mas com certeza do patrimônio natural. Nós tivemos algumas experiências muito interessantes na cidade de Petrópolis, né? E basicamente, ela está ligada ao patrimônio, né? Vou falar um pouco do patrimônio natural de Petrópolis. Ele está ligado ao bioma Mata Atlântica, né? A Mata Atlântica, ela cobre toda a região do litoral do Brasil, né? Ela está conseguindo sozinho, só um momento. Ela segue.
In the meantime, I should translate the first part.
Okay.
So the experience of Yara Valverde is a 30 years experience, and usually it was focused on the conservation of the entire natural landscape of Brazil. However, Petropolis was the main target of this investigation due to the fact that Petropolis, as we said before, it's a very relevant cultural heritage because it is a natural heritage. And the focus was to educate the people to understand how the heritage should be a a way of development of their city. Right now, Yara started to analyze what does it mean natural heritage in Brazil, and she started to focus on the relevance of the Mata Atlântica, that is a specific landscape that is going on along the entire coast of Brazil.
Principalmente porque a Mata Atlântica, ela além de ter remanescentes, só 10% de remanescentes no Brasil, ela engloba assim uma biodiversidade sem precedentes em todo o mundo. É a maior taxa de biodiversidade do planeta, podemos dizer. E então conservar esses remanescentes para a humanidade era muito importante, tanto que ela foi reconhecida como reserva da biosfera da Unesco, pela Unesco, e também por todos os organismos internacionais, como o IUCN, WWF, The Natural Conservancy, todos eles consideravam como um hotspot de biodiversidade. Então, essa relevância foi reconhecida pela Mata Atlântica. E Petrópolis está, na realidade, muito próximo, né, do centro dessa Mata Atlântica e de uma área bastante ocupada da Mata Atlântica, né, porque ela é próxima do Rio de Janeiro. Então, o grande desafio dessa Mata Atlântica em torno de Petrópolis é justamente como conservar com toda essa pressão urbana de uma metrópole como o Rio de Janeiro.
Okay, so what is fundamental when we speak to underline, when we speak about the Mata Atlântica, is the fact that is the deposit of a biodiversity for all the world. So, and that is the reason why a lot of institutions, in particular UNESCO, define the Mata Atlântica as a biosphere reserve for all over the world and an hotspot of biodiversity. So it's easy to understand how Petrópolis, that is in a very central position regarding the Mata Atlântica and in a metropolitan region of Rio de Janeiro, represent a challenge because for the Mata Atlântica, because we should say that the main issue of the investigation should be how it's possible to conserve the Mata Atlântica due to the incredible pressure that the metropolitan city is producing of this biosphere heritage.
Recentemente, a Petrópolis foi incluído na delimitação oficial da metrópole do Rio de Janeiro. E agora, nesses próximos meses, está sendo realizado o planejamento da inclusão de Petrópolis no plano metropolitano do Rio de Janeiro. Deverá estar terminado em outubro, antes das eleições do Brasil.
The Petrópolis officially it will be part of the metropolitan plan of Rio de Janeiro, and it will be officialized before the Brazil election in or more or less in October.
Ok. Agora, vamos ver um pouco a questão da ocupação da Mata Atlântica, porque ela é muito antiga. Ela remonta a 500 anos atrás, a época já do descobrimento. Logo depois, foi aberto, os primeiros caminhos abertos, as primeiras expedições abertas para o interior do Brasil, principalmente para a obtenção para a exploração das minas de ouro e diamante, né, foram feitas passando por Petrópolis. Existe um caminho ainda hoje, que é o caminho do ouro, né, que ainda existem remanescentes desse caminho e passa exatamente dentro da cidade. Então, é uma cidade que desde o início foi ocupada, primeiro pelos tropeiros, né, europeus, e depois, inclusive, com várias populações no entorno desse caminho, até para manutenção desses tropeiros, quer dizer, famílias foram se instalando com fazendas para fornecer alimentos para aquelas pessoas. Então, ela já desde o início da ocupação europeia, ela sofreu, aquele caminho de Petrópolis sofreu o impacto do homem.
The occupation of the Mata Atlantica and due to the relevance of Petropolis start when the European in the 16th century
arrive in Brazil.
Yes. What is important to underline is that, first of all, it was a phenomenon of extractivism due to the fact that it was a different kind of European population that came here looking for gold, diamonds, and every kind of natural resources. So we should say
and also
the woods. And we should speak about the God path that pass towards the city center of Petropolis. What is interesting to underline is the fact that the impact of the presence of human being inside of the Mata Atlantica due to the growing of the city of Petropolis was defined by the presence of Europeans that were coming from different parts of Europe. So we should say that also the culture of the people that arrived from Europe was absolutely heterogeneous.
Uma característica da cidade que tem muita relação, né, que tem total relação com o ecossistema da Mata Atlântica, é a sua suscetibilidade a eventos extremos, né? Ela é naturalmente suscetível a eventos extremos. Sem ocupação nenhuma, ela já é naturalmente suscetível. E esse fato, essa questão se agravou, esse aspecto, né, agravou com uma ocupação que aconteceu no século XX, uma ocupação desordenada, que praticamente abandonou o plano original do engenheiro Keller, que era um plano que valorizava a floresta e tinha um olhar, né, o olhar romântico germânico, né, naquela época do século XIX, de preservar a natureza, né? O romantismo barroco germânico que influenciou essa ocupação no início e que depois foi sendo abandonado, e a ocupação desordenada, a especulação imobiliária veio a aumentar o risco e trazer realmente risco, né, de desastres naturais para a cidade.
The geographical position and the orography of the city of Petropolis naturally is very sensible regarding the natural hazard, and in particular natural hazard related to the flood. But the city became much more sensible regarding to this challenge due to the fact that in the 19th century, the absolutely disordinated growing of the city left behind the ancient plan of the German engineer, that instead, probably also due to the German romantic attention for the environment, was very accurate and very sensible regarding the possibility to give value to the forest and the Mata Atlantica and the water system. So the 19th century and the incredible explosive occupation of this area increase the risk due to the natural hazard.
Hoje, a cidade foi levantado que nós temos aí 1.000 residências em áreas de risco. Esse é o grande desafio atual da cidade, né? O que fazer para impedir as mortes em decorrência dos desastres, né? Que chega a um número bastante desafiador, né, para uma cidade de médio porte.
Today, the municipality of Petropolis, it's a very risky area, and we should say that we have almost 1,000 households in risk to the flood and landslides.
Ao mesmo tempo, a cidade continua com o seu patrimônio ecológico conservado, é incrivelmente conservado, né? Com espécies que estão na lista das espécies ameaçadas de extinção, listas internacionais, como o caso dessa espécie aqui central, que é linda, maravilhosa, que se chama Vosleia ranieri, é uma marilidácea. Sei que a Antonella vai ter dificuldade de traduzir, mas é uma espécie belíssima. Aqui, nessa área, essa fotografia mostra campos de bromélias em altitudes de 1.000 metros, né? Aqui ela florida e aqui os campos de Vosleia. São coisas assim inimagináveis, joias da natureza que nós temos nas encostas de Petrópolis ainda.
In the meantime, even though the city is growing and is occupying the Mata Atlantica, the power of the Mata Atlantica continues to be absolutely alive. And one of the, so there are a lot of species by flora and fauna, and in particular the bromelie. I don't know the name.
Não, questa non è una bromelia, ma è bellissima.
Vosleia ranieri.
Sì, Vosleia ranieri.
Vosleia ranieri, that changes the color of the landscape according to the different altitude, but also there are bromelia that occupy this area.
There are many species of bromelias, endemic species of bromelias.
And what is relevant so is how, when we speak about heritage, we are speaking about an economy, but also we are speaking about an image of the cultural landscape, natural cultural landscape.
Okay. In this image, essa imagem fica claro a importância de Petrópolis, que está aqui no centro, para a conectividade do corredor da Mata Atlântica do estado do Rio de Janeiro. Essa interrupção aqui é a interrupção da rodovia que leva a São Paulo. E aqui, Petrópolis, apesar de não ter essa interrupção, é a via que leva a Belo Horizonte. Então, Petrópolis está no centro de uma ligação entre outras metrópoles brasileiras, né? Então, essa ligação forte com as metrópoles e com os seus caminhos, e a grande desafio que é a conservação desse corredor.
In this image, it's clear the central position of Petrópolis, the role and the relevance of the central position of Petrópolis for the conservation of the Mata Atlântica continuity, due to the fact that Petrópolis is in the middle of two different paths. The path toward Brasilia and the path toward Belo Horizonte. So we should say that the fact that we identify Petrópolis as one of the key study, relevant key study for Erythropolis is exactly the fact that the cultural heritage that Petrópolis represent is strongly related to the metropolitan dynamics that due to the incredible fast and explosive occupation of this area didn't allow to maintain the continuity of this fundamental biodiversity place and corridor.
Numa imagem mais aproximada aqui, o rio, the Piabanha River, that divide the state of Minas Gerais to Rio de Janeiro, e aqui o corredor e a cidade. Quer dizer, essa é uma dimensão também, the river, the water resources.
So in this image, we should see how they are in a parallel way, I guess. So from one side, we have the continuity of the Rio, of the river that divides the state of Minas Gerais and Rio de Janeiro, and parallelly, we should say the north-south path that passes towards and through the city center of Petrópolis.
Sim, e aqui a gente pode observar a interrupção desse corredor, ameaça de interrupção por ocupações desordenadas e a pressão sobre os fragmentos no centro urbano da cidade.
So in the previous image, we should notice how this informal occupation of the area produced a discontinuity of this Mata Atlântica corridor. And in the other image, the next one, we should say how in the city center of the city of Petrópolis, so the city center of the city of Petrópolis is surrounded of the portion of the Mata Atlântica. I don't know if Daniel would like to add something if I didn't catch everything.
No, I think it's fine. It's just that this middle area in between these settlements is in hazard due to informal occupation.
Okay. So what is important in the thought of Yara Valverde is the fact that the nature, and very relevant also for us as European, we don't have a buffer zone between the city and the nature. And the two landscape are in a sort of crash among them.
Yes, you can see in this photographic o patrimônio histórico, a cidade urbana e aquele fragmento que nós vimos antes, aqui com essa proximidade com a cidade urbana, é diretamente o urbano com o silvestre. E dentro desse fragmento, a qualidade da conservação dessa mata, né, com várias espécies. Aqui, sim, uma bromélia, né, uma bromélia típica da cidade de Petrópolis, endêmica de lá, enfim, e orquídeas, pássaros, enfim, por mais que esse fragmento, né, que esse patrimônio esteja ameaçado, cercado por uma ocupação urbana bastante intensa, ele consegue sobreviver, ele tem viabilidade, né? E isso é um bom sinal, e isso pode representar muito para outras cidades no mesmo contexto, como, por exemplo, o Rio de Janeiro, que tem uma situação muito semelhante, de uma ocupação urbana e diretamente você ter a mata ali encostada, né, sem uma buffer zone.
In this image, we should say has the urban and city fabric is directly connected with the nature. And when we try to enter inside the fragment, we should say that the quality of the natural environment, if I well understand, is Daniel, it's very high in any case. So we should say bromelia and endemic species, orchard, and also a different species of animals. And that situation, it's, if I well understood, is quite different from the situation that we should see in Rio de Janeiro, that in the same time is occupying and destroys the continuity of the Mata Atlantica without maintaining the same quality of the cultural heritage.
Ok. Essa é o mapa de Petrópolis e a cobertura por protected areas, né? Petrópolis hoje conta com 20 áreas protegidas, né? Privadas, públicas, em vários contextos, principalmente a maior parte delas são privadas. Isso é importante, porque isso mostra o sucesso de uma gestão para envolver a população, o proprietário da terra, para conservar a sua floresta, né? Para o bem de todos, é o que eu chamo da conservação colaborativa, né? Vamos dizer. Que isso é difícil de acontecer. E nos 20 anos de gestão dessa biodiversidade, nós conseguimos, esse é um dos indicadores de qualidade que nós conseguimos da gestão, porque realmente houve uma evolução de 3 áreas protegidas para hoje nós temos 20 áreas protegidas e a maior parte delas privadas, né? Envolvimento dos proprietários.
This map is the map of the protected area in Petropolis, and we should say that we have 20 protected area, public in part, public and private. The fact that we have many private protected area is a good indicator of the quality of the public policy management. Since it represents the fact that has Yara Valverde said at the beginning, so how is it possible to convince the population that the protection should be something that is related to the public good, their personal public good. So the fact that after 20 years of public management, we should speak about many private area, it's a good indicator of the quality of the protection management of the local politician and civil servant. And in this case, we should speak about, and I think that we have to underline this concept about collaborative conservation of the natural heritage, environmental heritage.
Yes. Apesar de toda uma degradação que a gente viu acontecer nos últimos 100 anos, né, que ocorreram lá, claramente, Petrópolis foi atingido por todas essas questões, principalmente os incêndios, a ocupação desordenada, a poluição, e, inclusive, a questão das espécies invasoras, né? O que nos levou a repensar o próprio conceito de conservação da biodiversidade, né? Porque qual a efetividade da criação de áreas protegidas, de parques, de reserva, se nós não conseguimos efetivamente conservar esse patrimônio? Então, o conceito que vem tradicional, que centrou nas hotspots, ele trabalhava com uma visão de ecossistemas, né, de espécies, da conservação de espécies de fauna e flora. Esse conceito, hoje, ele evoluiu. E hoje a gente pode falar, né, o que eu chamo de hope spots. É um conceito que leva em consideração o homem, a qualidade de vida do homem, né? As paisagens naturais. A gente não está falando mais em ecossistemas, mas a gente ampliou a escala de conservação para paisagens. Então, nessa escala, do ponto de vista geográfico, nós estamos falando da inclusão do homem nesse contexto de conservação. Então, são natural landscapes. É claro que natural landscapes tem dentro dela a ocupação humana. E é esse o grande desafio que a conservação tem que se deparar, né? Como é que você consegue reunir essas duas questões, da cultura e da natureza? E essa é a visão dos serviços, que trouxe a visão dos serviços ambientais para a qualidade de vida do homem, a dependência. Então, nesse contexto, muda, vamos dizer, o conceito de conservação, né? O foco, pelo menos o foco da conservação, ele muda, né?
So, it's a matter of fact that Petrópolis is very well known also for the degradation of its landscape, in particular due to the fire, due to some species, I don't know what is English for infestanti, that are occupying and destroying the local species. So what we have to take into consideration is an evolution of the concept of conservation. So why we have to conserve if that conservation is not effective? What Yara Valverde is trying to promote and sustain is a shift regarding the language. Instead to speak about hotspot, she preferred to speak about hope spot. And her point of view is related to the fact that traditionally, hotspot is a concept that is strongly related to the conservation of ecosystem for animal and vegetation. Instead, she thinks that it's absolutely fundamental to think that the environment and environmental landscape should include the human being. So it should be ecosystem services for the increase of the quality of the life and the well-being of the people. It's something that also Claudia mentioned at the beginning of her speech. So how the need of the local population must be taken into consideration when we speak about conservation at the urban scale, but also at the metropolitan scale. So that is an evolution regarding the binomio that also Francesco Baldarin mentioned at the beginning. So the connection between nature and culture must be not an opposition, but we have to consider that these two polarity in reality must be considered together.
Yes, yes. E o conceito, hoje, isso que nós trabalhamos há 20 anos atrás, hoje, na realidade, ele evoluiu, né? Temos aí um novo conceito, a visão de todas as organizações internacionais mudou. Então, hoje se considera que conservação seria proteger a natureza como uma fonte de recursos, de alimentos, de água potável, e um meio ambiente estável, para que a gente possa enfrentar, não ser estável, porque ele é dinâmico, mas essa dinâmica, essa evolução dinâmica dos ecossistemas, que eles possam minimamente não acarretar a extinção da própria espécie humana, né? E essa dependência, e o homem assumir essa dependência da natureza. Isso aconteceu, isso é uma realidade hoje, né? Coisa que nós tratamos lá atrás. Então, o interessante de Petrópolis, dessa experiência em Petrópolis, é que nós podemos avaliar uma gestão que ocorreu durante 20 anos, hoje, já com conceitos e com instrumentos que hoje estão sendo aplicados, né? Mas se nós começarmos a ver isso hoje, nós só vamos ter uma avaliação daqui a 10 anos. Então, o interessante é você olhar essa experiência de Petrópolis hoje, porque ela já passou por 10 anos de experimentação, de planejamento ambiental, zoneamento, enfim, de todas essas ferramentas tradicionais de gestão, mas incorporou também novos instrumentos de gestão, como, por exemplo, a comunicação social, que é super importante para a mobilização da sociedade para esse patrimônio, e que se mostrou muito eficiente. A outra instrumento que nós utilizamos e que hoje está começando a ser aplicado, que é a valorização econômica dos ecossistemas, dos serviços, dos ecossistemas e dos seus serviços, né? Isso hoje é fato, mas isso foi aplicado na cidade. Nós tivemos experiências com empresas, grandes multinacionais, que foram obrigadas a pagar com projetos ambientais, de recuperação ambiental, a partir de uma valoração econômica desse patrimônio. Isso é fato, isso tem registro, então isso favorece essa pesquisa, né? Essa avaliação.
What is fundamental? So why Petropolis case study is fundamental is exactly because 20 years of management of this natural heritage demonstrate that the protection of the natural heritage should be also resources for the people that live there. It's a matter of fact that is an heritage that is not still, but is a dynamic, in a dynamic situation. So also the different tools that we have to put in place to maintain this heritage should be in a continuous evolution. But however, we should say that 20 years of management demonstrate how it was possible to combine traditional management tools within new tools that were applied in this area. First of all, the social communication that was fundamental to mobilize the collective intelligence and the entire population that started to understand the relevance of their heritage. And secondly, due to the fact that the ecosystem services were applied in this management, also an economic value of this conservation. the fact that we introduce and we merge into the idea of conservation, heritage conservation, the economic values was fundamental also for the negotiation with a huge multinational company that were to pay with environmental project the fact that they occupy and they extract resources from this territory.
Okay. Esses são mapas que eu tirei da minha tese de doutorado, que nós estudamos a evolução de alguns fragmentos, isso na década de... nós fizemos esse trabalho no início da década de 2000, mas muito interessante, nós conseguimos imagens fotoaéreas, ortofotocartas, do início da década de 70, e acompanhamos a evolução dos desmatamentos, dessa vegetação. Esse aqui é aquele fragmento que nós vimos no centro histórico, que é o mais representativo do centro histórico, como ele estava na década de 70 e como ele evoluiu até a década de 2000. Né? No caso, as ortofotos chegaram a 2006. O que nós pudemos observar aqui em vermelho, essa aqui é um mapeamento da dinâmica das florestas nesse fragmento, aqui em vermelho, a perda de florestas, em verde, o aumento de floresta, e o que está em cinza é, na realidade, o que não foi alterado. Então, o que nós percebemos é que, com a gestão ambiental implantada por nós conseguimos estabilizar durante um longo período o desmatamento dessa área, com exceção desse probleminha aqui que nós encontramos, que justamente foi uma questão da implantação de um empreendimento aqui na região, nessa região aqui da cidade, do centro histórico, e o problema de uma queimada aqui, ó, nessa região também, que aumentou demais o desmatamento da área. Mas, enfim, essa é uma forma da gente avaliar no território, na paisagem, o que vem ocorrendo e o que a gestão está interferindo nesse caso. Né? É uma forma que a gente encontrou de observar isso. Aqui um exemplo de um fragmento na
just
zona...
a moment, Yara, just a moment, because this part was not so easy for me. So these are two
Daniel,
maps.
can help you?
Yes, these are two maps that we extracted from the PhD thesis by Yara Valverde and represent how the connection and the impact of the city of Petropolis regarding the Mata Atlantica. These maps represent the transformation of this fragment starting from 1970 until 2006. And they show how we have three different colors. We have the dark red that represents the area that were occupied or that were transformed. The Mata Atlantica due to the urban impact, but also due to some fire events. Then we have in dark green the point where the Mata Atlantica grows, and in light green, the area that remain such as they were. It's okay, Daniel?
Okay.
It's pretty much it.
Okay. Go ahead. No, sorry. It was also another idea that Yara Valverde, so we should say that the management was good in this case. So the balance between the area that were transformed and the area that remain such as they were, it's a sort of balance. So it's a good balance. I'm right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good
that's
job.
it.
And here is fragmento de Mata Atlântica já numa área de expansão urbana. E o que nós observamos ao longo do tempo é um aumento com a gestão da APA e com a aplicação de todos os instrumentos, a gente teve um aumento da vegetação, que é essas áreas verdes, né? E aqui nesse, que é numa área rural, então nós tivemos também um aumento. Mas o que a gente observou que na área de expansão urbana, o aumento foi maior de vegetação do que na área rural. E isso tem uma razão de ser, né? A área de expansão urbana, onde você vê verde, é onde foram implantados novos assentamentos, nossos condomínios. E no momento em que os proprietários construíam loteamentos e condomínios, nós podíamos agir e obrigá-los a recuperar áreas. Enquanto que na zona rural nós não podíamos fazer isso, porque eram áreas já consolidadas. Na realidade, o que nós queríamos aqui era que se conservasse. Já era um sucesso se fosse uma linha reta aqui, se não se alterasse, porque já era bastante verde, não tem nenhuma ocupação urbana aqui. Essa ocupação que você vê aqui é uma ocupação rural, só pequenas fazendas. A maior parte desse fragmento está totalmente isolado. É o fragmento, nós descobrimos que é o fragmento mais bem conservado de toda a Mata Atlântica do estado do Rio de Janeiro. Esse fragmento aqui, que fica no alto das montanhas de Petrópolis. É uma coisa, assim, para um ecologista, desculpe o termo, até orgasmos, só de olhar esse fragmento.
So we have two different fragments. The first one, the previous, yes, we should see how in an urban extension we saw an increase of a green area, and the reason is that due to that very good management of the natural resources, the new settlement were constrained to conserve or retrofitting areas. So they increase the quantity and the quality of the green area within the new settlement expansion and extension. In the next slide, instead, we are in a rural area. In this case,
se le apagó el micrófono a Antonella.
Okay. In this area, in this area, we are in a rural area. We see how the increasing of green area is not so high, such as in the urban fragment, because in this case, the goal was the conservation of the rural area that was already existing. So what we have to underline is the fact that this fragment is the best conserved area of the Mata Atlântica of the entire metropolitan area of Rio de Janeiro. And that is a great success for the management of the natural natural conservation. But I would like to say that these two slides, and I'm sorry to add this personal comment, well represent the fact that the conservation in a metropolitan dimension is a very dynamic process. that changed due to the two different areas, rural or urban. So it's a very important for the management to understand that the process of conservation is not only to freeze the landscape, but to maintain that dynamic process that also it's able to involve and engage the local inhabitant in this process of protection and also development, as we saw in the urban fragment of the landscape.
The good notice, this fragment is transformation in the reserve, street reserve, é uma reserva privada in this moment. One proprietário destinou toda essa área como uma área de reserva este ano, em 2022. Então, perpetuamente, essa área vai estar intocável. Nem as próximas gerações desse proprietário, os filhos, os netos, vão poder construir nessa área.
So great success for the management of Yara Valverde. These areas, that is a private area, will be a private reserve in 2022, and all the new owner of these areas that are related to the nowadays owner, they cannot touch this place. My question is, but it's possible to enter in this area. So what does it mean, private? In your
não, solo con autorizzazione del proprietario si può entrare lì e con autorizzazione dell'organismo ambientale di Rio de Janeiro, perché come una riserva può essere pubblica o privata, per entrare dentro solo con un'autorizzazione, perché una riserva stretta, l'unica cosa che si può fare è ricerca scientifica.
Okay,
o educazione ambientale, va bene, si può fare, ma nell'intorno di questa area si può sviluppare tutti i progetti di turismo, di agroturismo, turismo ecologico. Questo è possibile. In questa area qua, che sono fazenda, questa area rosa, sono varie fattoria, fazenda, e qua si può sviluppare, e già sta sviluppando, è un campo grande di sviluppo di turismo ecologico.
So this area is a protected area, so it's possible to enter inside only previous permission by the owner, even though in particular in the pink area of the image on our left, it's possible to develop ecotourism or because right now there are different farms. Instead, in the private reserve, it's possible to develop investigation regarding the natural heritage.
Ok. Essa é a imagem da cobertura por áreas protegidas da região metropolitana do Rio, com Petrópolis claramente no centro, né? Hoje, praticamente, todas as grandes áreas de Mata Atlântica da metrópole do Rio de Janeiro estão dentro de áreas protegidas, com mais ou menos restrições, né? Então, isso ocorreu durante toda essa cobertura, ela ocorreu justamente nos últimos 20 anos, né? E é um movimento que começou em Petrópolis.
So the management of the natural and environmental heritage that started from the city of Petropolis produced a so huge engagement of the social
Government.
and the local government that the white area is the entire protected area of the metropolitan region, the metropolitan area of Rio de Janeiro. And that started 20 years ago, more or less, and it started this movement of protection of the Mata Atlântica started from Petrópolis.
Ok. Finally, eu vou mostrar aqui, mostro para vocês aqui para mim, melhor exemplo de conservação dentro de uma metrópole, né, que foi na metrópole do Rio de Janeiro, o programa Multirão de Reflorestamento, que muitas pessoas desconhecem, brasileiros desconhecem, e é desconhecido no exterior, mas eu acho que tem que ser divulgado, porque foi um movimento que se inspirou no Major Asher, que no século XIX reflorestou toda a Serra da Tijuca, né, que hoje é o Parque Nacional da Tijuca, e mais a Pedra Branca, que são 2 parques do Rio de Janeiro, da cidade do Rio de Janeiro, que pode ser considerado os maiores parques urbanos do mundo, né? E que, na realidade, ele foi reflorestado pela mão humana, né? No século XIX, a mando do imperador, o Major Júlio Racher reflorestou toda essa área. E, inspirado nesse projeto do século XVIII, na década de 80, começou esse grande projeto, esse multirão de reflorestamento, que eu também pude participar, né? Colaborei muito, e que conseguiu envolver a própria comunidade, a comunidade local, né? Para esse trabalho. Isso garantiu a efetividade desse reflorestamento, que está lá hoje, ele é respeitado, não há mais desmatamento nessas áreas, elas estão totalmente preservadas, e isso gerou renda e trabalho para essas comunidades carentes, né? Então, esse é o parque que também foi reflorestado nesse mesmo projeto. Essa imagem, uma imagem ícone do Rio de Janeiro, aqui a Pedra da Gávea, esse é o Morro Dois Irmãos, a praia do Leblon, de Ipanema, o centro mais bonito e valorizado do Rio de Janeiro, que tinha esse morro aqui na década de 80, sem floresta. E hoje, totalmente florestado pela própria comunidade que habita nessas favelas, né? E ele está garantindo, essas comunidades estão garantindo a conservação desse patrimônio. Então, são projetos que, junto com os de Petrópolis, podem garantir que há possibilidade da gente ter uma evolução de todos esses ecossistemas, absorver, e que essas áreas que a gente chama de hope spots, que é onde está realmente o nosso patrimônio, que é importante para nós, para a nossa cultura, sejam preservados. É isso que eu tinha a dizer para vocês. Obrigada.
These 2 projects are other successful projects of reforestation of 2 areas. The first one is the Parco de Tijuca, that was an area that also include the very famous Pedra Blanca beach, I guess, and was one of the main park of the city of Rio de Janeiro. The second was instead the park that is related to the playa beach of Leblon and Ipanema. What is super important in this process of reforestation of this area is the fact that is possible due to the engagement of the local population, the people that live in the favelas. And that is an example, a good example of evolution of the concept of hotspot from a super protective protection point into a hope spot. So the possibility to engage a local population, because we should give them hope that this transformation of the landscape is also fundamental for their life. So I think that these two case studies are absolutely fundamental and well represent how the research should find a way to melt and to be connected with the management work. And I think that Yara Valverde well represents this new image and the role of the management of a public official and investigator and researcher, and the possibility to put together principle and values with issue and good management. And thank you very much, Yara.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Yara. Thank you very much, Antonella, for helping us with the translation. Well, we are running out of time since we are a little late on the presentations, but it's fine. I mean, today we have pretty nice discussions on important topics such as cultural heritage and how can we collaborate with university, with the local administration, and also the heritage systems that work on there, since what Claudia presented, and also about how can we tackle the biodiversity of the area and the system that evolves the city, and how we need to consider it that as part of our society. It's not nature against humans. It's like we are a soul system. We are totally integrated. So we need to have a different approach to nature and to conservation areas. And what Yara presented to us is that we need to think in a more collaborative way, and we need to integrate with the communities and the social aspects of the city. So it's a matter of to understand is a organic system that we need to upgrade from time to time. And I end that with the sentence said from Francesco Badarin. Heritage is a tool for planning a metropolis. So we need to think our natural, cultural, landscape heritage in order to rethink our cities. So thank you very much, Claudia. Thank you very much, Yara. Thank you very much, Antonella, and all the others that are here. Lucia, for sure. She's in the background doing everything, and Hyunjai that is here helping us. Thank you for all. This was our first webinar. We are inviting all of you guys to follow our social media. We have a Facebook page of Heritopolis. We have a YouTube channel for Heritopolis, and we also have an Instagram. We have all of the social media. So follow us in the social medias, and we are up to discussions. And if you are interested in working with Heritopolis, we are a very open group, and this is the first interaction. We hope we have other interesting discussions such as this one from Petropolis, and it's very particular yet very important scenario. It was very great to see the last slide showing what we can do if we work collaborative. These images from Rio are very bring us hope for the future. In a scenario where everything is going down, we need to have some hope. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Antonella.
Gracias.
Gracias a todos.
Emília,
Gracias, Claudia.
Antonella.
Gracias, Yara. Larissa
Obrigado,
também.
Yara.
Grazie,
Obrigado,
grazie,
Claudia.
Daniel,
Grazie,
felicitaciones.
Cecilia.
Grazie, Yara.